Under Anandamaya Adhikaranam, discussed in the sutras of the first section of the first chapter of the Brahma Sutras, one's real nature during deep sleep is discussed. The question has to be viewed from two standpoints, the absolute and the relative. From the viewpoint of the absolute, everyone is always of the nature of pure Satchit Ananda, whether in waking, dreaming, deep sleep, swoon, death or samadhi. There cannot be any doubt about it. All discussions about both the conditioned and unconditioned can only be in the conditioned state. It's a very interesting conclusion that comes out of it. And we have to face it, because we are sincerely doing sadhana. We are no one doubt oneself about the intensity of God seeking that is there in oneself. If a student is in class 6th in a school, he knows there is a class 5 and there is a class 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. But he knows that he is in class 6th, and for one full year he comes and sits in the class 6th. He has to wait, he has to study, he has to clear the examination, and if he clears the examination successfully, the next year he moves to class 7th. Now, when sadhaks discuss a subject, it is implied that the purpose is to know the absolute truth. That is one implication. The other implication is that sadhak is ignorant of the class 7th. Just as the student in the class 6th, he is ignorant of the subjects of class 7th, the understandings of class 7th. Similarly, during meditation, wisdom meditation, one should face that one is wanting to know the truth because one is ignorant of the truth. This is a huge lapse which happens in the case of sadhana of most of the sadhaks. Ignorance is just a description. Ignorance also means that you have cleared class 5 and you are class 6. So there is a level of achievement in class 6th. That means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 you have crossed and you have reached class 6th. And then you say that you are ignorant of class 7th and 8th or 9th. Similarly, when a sadhak faces this hard reality that he is ignorant of the absolute truth, he has to honestly admit to himself that he has achieved something in the process of knowing the truth. Some portion of the truth he has understood. Still, some more portion of the truth remains to be understood, for which sadhana is required. And all this should be taken to mean that we are all in a state of ignorance. It helps us, because if the student keeps thinking, I have passed class 1, I got this percentage in class 1, I passed class 2, I passed class 3. The whole day he is thinking about it. It doesn't add to any of his knowledge or skill. Whereas if he thinks that he does not know what is taught in the class 7th, then the brilliant students, what they do is they start reading the books of class 7th while they are in class 6th. That is the message, that is the secret message, how to get the supreme knowledge. By admitting that one is ignorant, one is actually a gainer. But if you keep on harping that you know some portion of the truth, you know this portion of the truth, you know this dimension of the truth, you are actually a loser. So by using the comprehension of ignorance, by admitting that one is ignorance, one is always alert, one is always striving, one is always trying to put his best to know the ever expanding horizons of the truth. And the truth also makes itself available to such an approach and to such a seeker. So therefore, we have to admit that we are ignorant. We are in a state of relative. Our goal is absolute. Sages like Vyasa and Vasishtha have discussed again and again the unconditioned absolute. The sages and their discussions, which one reads or hears, cannot but be the projections of one's consciousness. Both the conditioned and its opposite, the unconditioned, have necessarily to be one's own projection. This is another point to be careful about during sadhana. Whatever word, concept one may entertain, finally it is the seeker and his comprehension of that concept which gives meaning to the concept. Temperature may be 35 degrees centigrade, and one person may say it is cool, another may say it is warm. Third may say it is very hot. Temperature is the same. And you cannot say either of them is wrong. What does this show? That each person has his own comprehension about the 35 degrees centigrade temperature, and he has a right to have his own comprehension. Another person may say it is cooler than yesterday. The second person says it is warmer than yesterday. Now the fact is that yesterday it was 33 degrees and today it is 35. That is a fact known to everyone. But again, the projection of the mind of different individuals is different. We have to admit that I have my own peculiar projection power of my mind. With this unique projecting power of my mind, I have to know the absolute truth. So truth is not like a potato that anybody can go to a shop and ask for a potato and same object, same food would be given to 10 customers by the shopkeeper. The absolute truth is not like a potato that anybody can go to any spiritual shop and ask, give me absolute truth. And those who run that spiritual organization, they will give, okay, here is your absolute truth. So it is a mystic science. Lot of it is implied meaning. Implied meaning means you have to read between the lines. And one has to constantly look at the projecting capability of the mind, try to correct it as much as possible, try to attune it to the absolute, so that when the absolute comes, the absolute should be received as absolute, and one should not take a distorted image of the absolute, which will actually be relative, and one would settle for absolute. It is getting deceived. So if you go out to get the absolute, you should be able to get the absolute. Nobody should be able to give you a relative saying that here is the absolute, and he gives a relative and you assume that this is the absolute, whereas actually you have ended up bringing a relative. So there lies the importance of constantly cleaning the mind. Scriptures lay a lot of emphasis on cleansing the mind. And there lies the importance of karma yoga. There is nothing better than the karma yoga for cleansing the mind, which is one of the important messages of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Cleansing of the mind is important so that when the absolute appears before us, we should be able to recognize the absolute. And when the absolute may appear, it is only the absolute which knows. So what a sadhak can do is keep himself always ready, so that whenever the absolute appears, he should be able to receive the absolute as absolute. So simultaneous. You call it titiksha. Titiksha is endurance. So lot of endurance in Karma Yoga is required. Both physical karmas and mental karmas. Rather than focusing on the design of karma, execution of karma, result of karma, then matching it with your plans, objectives, there has to be a shift in the approach of a sadhak versus the approach of a worldly person. Sadhak should constantly remind that he is enduring karma. He's not doing karma, he is enduring karma. He is allowing karma to happen constantly, physical and mental, physical and mental, physical and mental. By mental, we mean everything. Hopes, aspirations, ambitions, emotions, everything. So one is enduring karma as a cleansing process for cleaning the mind, to prepare the mind to receive the truth. This is the whole vision in sadhana. And this will continue to happen it will happen very fast in somebody who constantly admits that he is in the relative, he is ignorant. The best example again is Lord Hanuman, always sitting at the feet of the Lord. कभी तो बराबर की सीट पे बैठ सकते थे, sitting at the feet of the Lord means being humble, always knowing that I do not know the absolute and my goal is to know the absolute. That is a posture which facilitates the descent of grace. Always sitting at the feet of the absolute truth. This is the best one can do, and therefore this is the best one should do. The absolute, that is the Atman Brahman, transcends them both. It includes all, excludes all, transcends all inclusions and exclusions all at once. The third limitation is in sadhana a communication, whether it is an active communication or it is a passive communication. Active communication means some instructions coming from somebody and one is listening to those instructions. A satsang, one is again listening. Somebody is doing bhajans, kirtans, speeches. And passive satsang means when one is doing the swadhyaya, the study of the scriptures. So there the scripture is speaking. Even though one says that I am reading the scripture, the fact is it is the scripture which is speaking to me. That is a passive communication. So these words, absolute and relative, finally, it's like the absolute is speaking and the relative is listening. Whereas the real absolute truth is above the speaker and the listener. Which means the concept absolute is not the absolute. The concept relative is not relative. And in a way, both are part of the absolute. But as concepts, none of them is absolute. That is how it is described. It includes all, excludes all, transcends all, inclusions and exclusions.